So now that you have looked at loops and then rotating the loops and making the loops interactive, the next thing is to talk about noise. And noise is like random. It's a random number generator, but the difference with noise is that it can be used to generate numbers that are closer together, so you get a smoother, more like pulsing movement than you would get if you use random. So I could apply noise to anything that is a number, just like you do with random. So it could go in a fill, it could go on the x-axis or y or width or height axis of any shape. But we're going to do something very specific with it here, and we're going to be applying it to our shapes that will be in our mandalas. So I have here just a simple example of a line. It's just a line that is in a while loop, and it's being rotated, and then I've added noise onto it to give it kind of that pulse. So if you're using noise properly, it should not look like random. It should kind of be slow and a little bit unpredictable, almost like it's moving. So let me show you another example so where you will be going with it. And here it is on something that looks more like a mandala. So once you start having these loops, don't be surprised if it does take a second for your sketch to play. And it can even like pause once it opens up before you start seeing it. But so this is more like what we want. We want something that has like a little bit of movement and it's very slow and subtle. And I'll just make some couple of quick adjustments here to show like the different ways that noise can show up. And so that doesn't look good. That's more like random, and that's what we do not want, okay? So I'm gonna bring that back down, go something in between, oops. Come on. All right, and so then here it's even slower, and you can see you can have it, you can control its speed. What we want is something that's on the smooth, slow, not too slow that we really can't even see it moving, but something like this is about as slow as it should go. And then the way it was when it originally opened up was pretty good for the fast side, but we don't want it to spaz out like something that's on random. And this one you can see it just sort of like, it sort of almost has like a breath, like it's pulsing. All right, so let's talk about how noise works. How do you use it? All right, so it's a random number generator, just like random. So if I did a print line, and I'm going to start off actually putting random in here. Down here, you should see numbers that appear anywhere from 0 to 49. And that's what I'm seeing. And they're all decimals, and it's everywhere. We just look at this. I'm at 8, then I'm at 38, then I'm at 39, 38. So this group stays close together, but then it jumps down to 5 and then back up into our 30s, 20s, so on and so forth. So it really randomly grabs numbers anywhere from 0 up to 49. And so now let's replace the word random with noise. And I'm giving it the same argument of 50. So as a heads up, noise unfortunately is just not as easy to use as random because it's about a 3-step process to get it to do what you want. But I think it's worth it because it's pretty cool. Move this aside. Okay, so first thing you may notice is you get a number, it's less than 0, and it's not moving anymore. Why not? I'm in the draw. Why? It's looping, but by default, noise isn't moving. Okay, so this is step number 1. What do we do to get it to move? Well, if this was a rectangle and I wanted the rectangle to move across the screen, what would we do? I can hear you guys all calling, use a variable. Yes, we would use a variable. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to use a variable, and it has to be a float type because noise creates numbers that are decimals. I'm going to call it n for noise, and I'll just have it equaling 0 to start with. So instead of having a number here, I'm going to use my variable, and then to get it to move, n equals n plus, I'll say 10, right? So this would be just like if it was a rectangle. We want the rectangle to move. I would use a variable. I'd use it in one of the coordinate spots, and then I would increase it, right? Okay, so let's see what this gives us. Yay, okay, it's moving. The variable worked. But what do you notice about the numbers? The numbers are never going above 1. Okay, so I don't want to point fingers or anything, but noise is kind of a jerk. It takes a lot to get it to work properly. Well, it's really just 3 steps. So we're doing the next step. We've made a variable, we're using the variable, and we're increasing the variable. So it's just one more thing. We have to have some way to get this number to be larger. It's moving, and I like that, but something to get it larger. I'm going to take this little kind of like an algorithm here, so noise with the argument of n, and I'm going to multiply that by a number. And I'm going to use the system variable width. So that's going to be whatever number I have up here, right? All right, let's take a look at it now. And now it's working. All right, so let's just pause and take a look at the numbers it's giving us. So here I'm getting 101, 181, 255, 285. Okay, so this sort of looks like random. It's a little bit too big. Like it's giving me different numbers. I'm now above 0, which is great, but I want the numbers to be closer together. All right, so what are the steps? How do we use noise? One thing is we're never going to add it plus 10. When you work with noise, it's going to be, your variable is going to be plus a very small number. So plus, for example, 0.002 is one I use a lot. All right, and now when we look at the range of numbers that we're getting, you can see that I'm getting a random selection of numbers, but they're a lot closer together. So here I have 179, 8, and they're just moving by the decimals. I'm in the 70s, I'm into the 60s, up here I'm in the 80s. So it's moving, but they're staying a lot closer together. All my numbers are kind of up around 200, 300. So here I'm up at 400. So I'm getting pretty big numbers. I'm not getting things that are too small. If I want to control that, instead of multiplying it by width, which is 500, I could do this as a smaller number. So I could say width divided by 2. I could just put in a number. I'm going to say times 200. All right, move this to the side. Pause it. Okay. So now you can see I'm getting, my numbers are still close together. That's happening because I'm increasing it by a really small decimal number. And my range of numbers is now lower. So this is going to control like how far out noise moves and how fast it moves. All right, so these two numbers, these are going to be the two numbers. All right, so again, in summary, the steps to get noise to work. We have noise, we give it an argument that's a variable. I can, by the way, make this variable equal anything. It doesn't matter. Just put it at 0. I increase that variable by a very small number, generally something around 0.002. And then to get a wider range of numbers, I take this, my argument, and I multiply that by a larger number like 200. Okay, so that's the first step. In the next video, I'm going to talk about how do you put this into your sketch and start applying it to your loops.